Puerto Rico, La Isla del Encanto, the island of enchantment, 90 miles east of the Dominican Republic. This small island of 3.3 million American citizens sits in the heart of the Caribbean Sea. It is a place of impossible green mountains, warm blue water, and people whose roots stretch back centuries through Spanish colonizers, African slaves, and the indigenous Taino people who called this land home long before anyone else. It is also a place that sits directly in the path of Atlantic hurricanes. September 2017 had already been a brutal month for the Caribbean. Hurricane Harvey had just devastated Texas. Hurricane Irma, one of the most powerful Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded, had torn through the northern Caribbean, grazing Puerto Rico on September 6th and leaving hundreds of thousands without power. Puerto Ricans were already exhausted, already cleaning up, already trying to piece things back together. They had no idea what was coming next. On September 17, 2017, a tropical storm named Maria formed in the warm waters of the Atlantic Ocean east of the Lesser Antilles. Within 24 hours, it had intensified into a hurricane. Within 48 hours, it had exploded into a Category 5, the most dangerous classification on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Maximum sustained winds of 280 kilometers per hour. A storm so large its clouds stretched across the entire Caribbean Sea. The National Hurricane Center issued its warning. Meteorologists watched their screens in stunned silence. Maria was heading directly for Puerto Rico. The island braced. Grocery store shelves emptied in hours. Hardware stores ran out of plywood and batteries. Hospitals filled generators with fuel. Families taped their windows, filled bathtubs with water, and held each other tight. Evacuation was not easy on an island. There was nowhere to drive to. For many, the elderly, the sick, the poor, there was nowhere to go at all. On the evening of September 19th, as Maria churned westward at terrifying speed, Puerto Rico Governor Ricardo Rossello delivered a message to his people. He told them the storm would be unlike anything the island had ever seen. He was not wrong. Hurricane Maria made landfall on the southeastern coast of Puerto Rico, near Yabucoa at 6:15. In the morning on September 20th, 2017, it came ashore as a Category 4 hurricane with winds of 250 kilometers per hour. But the numbers cannot describe what happened next. For more than 30 hours, Maria sat over Puerto Rico, grinding, churning, tearing. It was not a storm that passed quickly. It was a storm that stayed, that suffocated, that dismantled the island piece by piece. Roofs peeled off homes like paper. Concrete structures crumbled. Decades-old trees that had survived 100 storms, were snapped at the base or ripped entirely from the earth, roots and all. The mountainous interior of Puerto Rico, normally a lush emerald jungle, was stripped bare. Every leaf torn away, every hillside exposed. The island turned from green to brown overnight. Rivers flooded catastrophically. The Guajataca Dam in the northwest nearly failed, sending emergency crews racing through the night to evacuate 70,000 people downstream before it collapsed. In the city of Arecibo, floodwaters rose so fast that families climbed onto their rooftops and waited in the dark, surrounded by water, hoping someone would come. When the storm finally passed and the sun rose on September 21st, Puerto Rico emerged into a world that no longer looked like home. The entire island had lost power. Every single transmission tower, all 2,400 of them, was damaged or destroyed. The electrical grid, already aging and fragile before the storm, had been completely obliterated. Puerto Rico was in total darkness. Cell phone towers were down. Roads were blocked by landslides and debris. Bridges had washed away. The island's main airport was damaged and initially closed to all but emergency flights. For millions of people, there was no way to call for help, no way to know if their family across the island was alive. Puerto Rico was, in the truest sense of the word, cut off from the world. The human cost was staggering. In the immediate aftermath, official reports listed the death toll at 64, but researchers, journalists, and scientists knew that number was wrong, badly wrong. A landmark study published in 2018 by Harvard University estimated the true death toll at nearly 3,000 people, making Hurricane Maria one of the deadliest natural disasters in American history. People died not from the wind and water directly, but from what came after. Dialysis patients who could not reach functioning medical centers, diabetics whose insulin spoiled without refrigeration, heart patients whose oxygen machines stopped working when the power died, elderly people alone in the heat with no way to call for help. These were quiet deaths, deaths that happened in the dark, deaths that no one counted for months. Pause. Narrator VO. The electricity did not come back quickly. In the United States, after a major hurricane, Power is typically restored within days or a few weeks. After Hurricane Maria, Puerto Rico's power grid remained partially or fully down for months. Some communities waited nearly a year for electricity, 332 days. That is how long it took for the last communities on the island to have their power restored. Almost an entire year of living without lights, without refrigeration, without air conditioning in the Caribbean heat, without the ability to pump water to homes, without the most basic infrastructure that modern life depends upon. It was the longest blackout in American history. It was the longest blackout in American history. Into this darkness came blue tarps. The United States Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, distributed blue plastic tarps to families whose roofs had been destroyed across the mountains and valleys of Puerto Rico. Those blue tarps became the symbol of Maria's aftermath, patching hundreds of thousands of damaged homes. Some families lived under those tarps for over a year, some for 2 years. The federal response was widely criticized as slow and insufficient. Just 10,000 FEMA personnel were deployed to Puerto Rico, compared to 30,000 sent to Texas after Hurricane Harvey. Just weeks earlier, shipments of supplies sat at the port of San Juan for days, unable to move inland because there were not enough truck drivers or functioning roads to distribute them. The island's debt crisis. Puerto Rico had been in financial collapse for years before Maria meant there were fewer resources, fewer government workers, fewer safety nets to catch people when they fell. But Puerto Ricans did not wait. Community organizations, neighborhood groups, individual families, they organized. They shared generators, shared food, shared water. Doctors set up makeshift clinics, and radio operators became the communication lifeline for remote mountain communities. Local chefs ran community kitchens feeding thousands of people every day. Chef Jose Andres arrived on the island with his nonprofit, World Central Kitchen, just days after the storm. What began as a small operation grew into the largest disaster food relief effort in history, serving over 3.7 million hot meals to Puerto Ricans in the weeks following Maria. 3.7 million meals, cooked and distributed by volunteers, by local restaurant workers, by people who had lost their own homes but still showed up to cook for their neighbors. The diaspora moved too. Hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans left the island in the months after Maria, relocating to Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, and across the United States mainland. Some left temporarily. Many never returned. By 2018, Puerto Rico's population had dropped by an estimated 130,000 people, an exodus that added a new layer of grief to an island already wounded. Schools closed, businesses shuttered, entire neighborhoods emptied. The people who left did not want to leave. They left because there was no school for their children, no hospital nearby, no electricity, no income. They left because survival demanded it.